Hello everybody and welcome back aboard the night train. Recently, for the 80th anniversary of the Railway series, I got out all of my Thomas engines to have a look at them and sort of show you some of the refurbishments I've done, as well as giving a few secrets and insights into how I've modelled them in the past. I didn't cover any of my coaches or wagons in that video, as I thought I'd save them and present them all in their own separate piece. When I went back through my collection of wagons and coaches, there were some items I decided I would just completely remodel from the ground up, discarding the old ones and replacing them with something brand new. A lot of those original rolling stock came from either Hornby or Bachmann, or were rudimentary pieces I needed for the fan series that I produced. But since then, I've gone back through the TV show's history and picked out a few other models that I thought I'd really fancy that to help give the Thomas & Friends aesthetic on my layout. I really wanted to make my rolling stock as authentic to what appeared in the show as possible, so I thought I'd take you through them today and show you and pinpoint the exact wagons that I've tried to replicate from specific episodes and specific series. So, once again, simply sit back and enjoy. Let's start off with some carriage stock, beginning with Thomas's own faithful coaches, Annie and Clarabelle. These are still my originals, with underframes painted black and buffer houses in red, and they've each been given a layer of matte varnish to dull in the shine of the factory finish. Together, they look quite the part when paired with Thomas, Percy, or even Duck. Another iconic coach is Henrietta, seen here via the Bachmann model. I swapped out the huge coupling hooks for some more appropriately sized ones, gave her some light weathering and a spray of matte varnish to dampen the gloss. She looks much better behind my refurbished Toby now, making them quite the pair. Moving on to some of the off-the-shelf bogie coaches available for Thomas, we have a pair of Hornby Red Express coaches. These are my most recent coach additions, but they did suffer in shipping as they were unboxed and wrapped together, so some of the paintwork was rubbed off on the contacting sides, which was unfortunate. Still, they allow for some great looking passenger trains, and I've not modified them in any way. With red often comes blue and vice versa, so here is my pair of Hornby's Blue Express coaches. I haven't done anything to modify these either, much like the red coaches, but they look swell behind James, Gordon and Henry. Sticking with bogie coaches, here we have my custom model of Old Slow coach. The Hornby model was quite inaccurate to the show's model, so I got an old triangular clerestory coach and made some modifications. I cut a window into the end of the coach, as seen in the show, and painted up the windows accurate to Old Slow coach's model, blocking out some additional ones with card to get them to match where there was a slight discrepancy. The brake ducats were modelled on the end with a piece of card and some filler, and painted up appropriately. For the face, I couldn't find a spare or second-hand Hornby face, nor a piece of merchandise sporting a face of suitable size that I could use. So, I had the idea to have a face in the same style as that of Annie and Clarabelle, consistent with the other coaches in the TV show and the style of faces seen in the Railway series. I adjusted the pupil positions and eyelid coloration to give the face some unique identity, and added a smiling mouth in keeping with the others but slightly different in expression. The nose was a piece of trimmed triangular plastruct filed to fit against the surface. In some ways, I wish the official TV show opted for this route instead of using a large grey face and eye mechanism. Thus, Old Slow Coach is now show accurate with a little bit of my own creative flair, making Old Slow Coach a fun and unique addition to my passenger trains. My next set of four-wheel coaches are Bachmann's Red offering, one of which is a brake coach. I backdated their appearance to how they appeared in series 2, 3 and 4 by painting the roofs white and giving them a light white layer of weathering. I most often pair these with Stepney, as seen in series 4's Rusty to the Rescue and Thomas and Stepney, which fits given these coaches are of a Stroudley design. My first true custom set of four-wheel coaches are the first set of custom coaches I ever made, and they are renditions of Helena and Victoria from the Railway series. I repainted some of my existing Hornby four-wheel coaches into their illustrated liveries, using some masking tape and Humbrol acrylic and gloss paints. Originally they had completely hand-painted faces, but during the refurbishment of my collection I redid the faces in the same manner as Old Slow Coach, for consistency with Annie and Clarabelle. For Helena's face I had to create an expression, so opted for a rather befuddled one to stand out against Victoria's smile. A rare piece of CGI inspired coaching stock now, as we have the Fat Controller's birthday coach from Series 16. This is a Hornby, Liverpool and Manchester Railway third class coach with a NEM pocket glued underneath, so Thomas, Edward and anyone else can pull the Fat Controller around on his birthday. Bachmann are now making an official one, but my existing model serves its purpose and also provides me with a way to connect NEM coupled engines to the chain coupled Hornby Era 1 rolling stock, or to have my Era 1 engines pull tension coupled wagons. Besides that, I've not made any further modifications to this. A wagon commonly seen in Sodor freight trains instead of passenger trains is the CCT utility wagon. The version I modelled from the show is the one uniquely mounted on bogies instead of single axles, as seen in Series 1's Thomas and the Trucks and the Flying Kipper. This is the 4-vent utility van variant, which started out as a Wren CCT wagon I picked up cheap while on a trip to the East Lancashire Railway. I repainted it from green to brown and removed the broken axle detailing underneath, replacing them with some bogies from another wagon. The solid disc wheels are slightly too big for it though and impede running, so I need to swap them out for some slightly smaller, show-accurate spoked wheels. We have some more bogie utility vans next in the form of the Bachmann Sodor Mail vans, specifically the early release with the Sodor Mail lettering as seen in the model series. These have been given a moderate layer of white dust weathering to look more used, with the gloss dulled by matte varnish. One is slightly less weathered than the other, and they make up a short, neat mail train for Percy to pull. I've always seen the mail train as Percy's signature train, so I'm really glad I have these. Cows have cropped up a lot over Thomas's history, so I repainted my Bachmann cattle wagon to resemble the one seen in Series 2 episode Cows. It's been repainted brown with green doors in a duller, less vibrant shade than the standard Bachmann livery, and it's also been weathered in the appropriate places. Onto some freight wagons now, starting with open wagons. One completely fictional Railway Series inspired wagon I made early on in my modelling days was this AW Dry & Co 5-plank wagon. Inspired by the canonical company of the same name, I opted for a gold livery because I thought a golden wagon was a change from the norm. I gave it black framing and white lettering, and then came back to it several years later to apply the weathering. The base model was a cheap 80s Hornby open wagon that looked much better with the facelift. The metal axles will be swapped out for modern ones at some point, but it already looks the part even if the running quality is a tad outdated. The second of my Railway Series inspired trucks is the Sodor China Clay 5-plank wagon. Again, this is an 80s Hornby open wagon, repainted red with white decals added, and finished off with a hefty layer of weathering. It's based on several book illustrations and was one of my earliest custom models. Bachmann are now bringing out a rendition of this which will pair nicely with my current one, showing perhaps some iterations or evolution of Sodor China Clay Company's wagons through the years. Or, in my head at least, that's how I'd see it. Turning to the TV show now, and we have the first of a raft of troublesome trucks, each themed around wagons that appeared in different series. Starting us off, we have this Series 1 wagon, painted grey, weathered outside and inside, and with an original Series 1 face. I used to work right by the old Hornby shop in the Swindon Designer Outlet, so could pick up cheap, unboxed Oxford Rail 7-plank wagons on discount, which became my driver behind replacing all of my original troublesome trucks. The face here was printed out, covered with a layer of sellotape, then cut out and glued in place. It was all very simple and effective, and far superior to my old repainted Triang wagons with wooden railway faces. Next up is a rendition of a Series 2 troublesome truck, as seen in Pop Goes the Diesel, Percy's Predicament, and future series episodes such as A Scarf for Percy. I tried to get the rust weathering patches to match the wagon seen on screen in the show. This truck was painted a dark green with black framing beneath the weathering layers, and is the first of several to sport a 3D printed grey face I got from the Faces of Trouble on the old Shapeways marketplace. The many different expressions really help spice up the combinations and individuality of each truck. Here we have the truck inspired by Series 3, again a dark green similar to that seen in Mavis and Toby's Tightrope, as this was the most common colour of 7-plank wagons seen in Farquhar Quarry. The dusty white weathering resembles the quarried rock dust seen on these wagons as well. This wagon currently has a repainted version of a wooden troublesome truck face, and I repainted it so that the shades of grey matched my 3D printed faces. Next up, we've got a troublesome truck that doesn't conform to a specific wagon in the show from what I can remember, but it was seen commonly throughout the classic series. It's grey like the Series 1 wagon, but with a 3D printed grey face on the front instead. With Series 5 being a personal favourite, for this one I modelled one of the brown wagons as seen in Put Upon Percy and Oliver's Find. It's got another variation of the 3D printed faces I've bought. Representing some of the oddities of the hit era, we have a troublesome truck with grey planking, black framing, and a heavy dose of weathering and a sly grin on his face that borders on sinister. I got this face in the pack of 3D printed ones I ordered, so I thought I may as well use it. That's really the only reason this truck exists in my collection. These faces just never looked right to me, or at least I thought they looked far inferior to the classic series troublesome truck faces, which had much more mischief to them. Sticking with trucks, I also have a raft of painted troublesome truck faces to rotate between wagons, giving different moods, vibes and intentions. These were all printed by the Faces of Trouble on Shapeways, and do so much for bringing Thomas-themed rolling stock to life. Arguably the most troublesome truck of them all, we have my second iteration of Scruffy. I swapped out my old Hornby one for a Bachmann model with a more accurate tooling, and I then repainted and weathered it inside and out. Removing the face, I repainted it into a darker grey, wiping away any wet paint that obscured the white decals. I then repainted the orange framing and added a good dose of rust weathering and ballast dust to finish things off. Scruffy now looks like his messy, commanding self, and is kept away from Oliver for his own good. Going back to the Railway series books for another troublesome private wagon, we've got Fred Pelhay, which I modelled before it was revealed his name is actually meant to be Fred Pelham. I based this on the wooden railway toy livery to fill in the blanks of the single illustration he appears in. For continuity, I repainted the wooden railway toy face to the same grey as my other trucks. This is one of my earliest customs I made using a Hornby Triang 8-plank wagon, and since then I have weathered the body and undercarriage to make him look more mucked up. The broken buffer also adds some additional character. Moving on to a not so horrid private owner wagon, we have the humongous Hector. Hector is a 3D printed, show accurate take on an ICI hopper, which was painted black and given huge white decals. The face came from a take-along toy, which is actually well scaled for 00 gauge. Even the bogies are 3D printed and fitted with metal Bachmann axles. Hector is by far my biggest open wagon, and thankfully Trouble doesn't scale up with him. Moving on to some covered wagons now, and we have the not quite complete Salt vans. I'm redoing these from scratch as well, and here is the body of a Series 2 styled black-grey Salt wagon. I've got 2 more to paint up, with one planned to be in a Series 2 cream livery and another in a white livery. They're languishing in my project drawer at the moment, but I'll eventually get round to them. Heading right back to the beginning, we have a repainted Hornby GWR ventilated van, brown and weathered as it appeared back in Series 1, particularly Thomas and the Trucks and James and the Express. It was another simple job and forms a key part in reconstructing Thomas's first fateful freight train. One of the few kit-built wagons in all of my Thomas collection is this LMS 2-ton steel door vent wagon, as seen in Series 1's Edward and Gordon and, again, Thomas and the Trucks. The wagon itself is a Cambrian Models wagon kit, for which I built the body and then stuck it onto a Dapol wagon chassis, which proved to be a perfect, robust fit. The wagon is painted dark grey and weathered akin to the wagon in the show. It never appeared again after Series 1, so helps date any trains I recreate from those episodes in the show. Next we have what are called NER vans on the Thomas wiki, but they are really based on LNWR 6-ton refrigerated vans. This van is actually 3D printed to resemble the one in the show that appears in Series 1, including the pilot episode, Tenders and Turntables, and also Series 3's Percy, James and the Fruitful Day. It's fitted with Bachmann spoked wheels and fitted with coupling hooks, and painted a weathered black. The printing quality on the ends isn't the best, but from afar the wagon blends in with other professionally produced models to a convincing degree. Another 3D printed offering in my collection is the LBSC 8-ton goods van. This is made to resemble the van who taunts Diesel in Series 2's Pop Goes the Diesel and Dirty Work. It's painted brown with a faint rustic weathering. The wheels are once again Bachmann spoked wheels, and the print is in general a better quality than the LNWR van. It's lightweight, being all plastic, but runs well enough in a train. Arguably, and weirdly, one of my favourite pieces of rolling stock in the entire show turns out to be this random LNER 12-ton vent wagon in the weathered orange-brown livery. Series 5 was brand new when I first discovered Thomas. Well, that ages me a lot. And this wagon popped up notably in Haunted Henry, Busy Going Backwards, Make Someone Happy, Something in the Air, as well as earlier series. I first made this wagon out of a steel-sided banana van, which wasn't accurate, so I bought a second-hand plank-bodied wagon and painted it up, only to realise the planking was horizontal instead of vertical as in the show. So this is Mark III of this particular wagon, made using a Bachmann vertical planked vent wagon, repainted, re-weathered, and with detailing stripped back where possible to match the show. Underframe detailing, brake shoes, and lamp irons have all been removed in the quest for accuracy, though I did have to add rain guards above the doors on the roof. It finally looks as I hoped, and my weird dedication to this particular wagon has come to a head. It is now fitted with the troublesome truck face as worn in Haunted Henry, which is a personal favourite of mine. Oh, the things we do because of this silly little blue engine can be truly astonishing, in a good way. On to brake vans now. And another simple refresh was given to the spiteful brake van, who now has a TV show styled face and some light weathering. The face makes him look smug and conceited like he does in his singular episode, though I still have the Railway Series accurate face should I fancy making a model using his Railway Series basis someday. I think everyone can agree that the best brake van in the entire show is none other than Toad. Here's my model of the character. Another I made before the official Bachmann release, and built to a better degree of accuracy than the Hornby release, and I'm so fond of it that I never saw any point in replacing it. Toad started out life as a Hornby Dublo die-cast brake van. His face came from the wooden railway toy to resemble his model series face. I used Plastruck strips to get the framing to match his show model and renumbered him exactly. I gave him the red lamps mounted on each side as he had in series 4, 5 and CGI. All in all, he's one of the best brake van customs I've ever done. And the third sentient brake van from the TV series is Bradford. To match his CGI model, I repainted an old Hornby LMS brake van and fitted some platforms beneath the doors. I added the tail lamps, but had trouble sourcing a face as Bradford never received official merchandise. This sculpt was created and painted by Sudrian Railway Modeller and certainly fits the bill. I would though like to see Bachmann's take on Bradford. We've had Toad and the spiteful brake van from them, and with models of the mainland 08 shunters supposedly viable, a Bradford model has a chance of seeing the light of day. For now though, this custom will keep all of my trucks in an orderly line. Up next we have a Hornby Sodor fuel tanker, which I've half redecorated. The strapping has been painted yellow and the underside of the tank has been weathered, with the underframe coated in black, white and rust weathering powder. I used to have several of these, and though the wagon was introduced in Series 3, only one was produced for the show, so only one was ever seen at a time. Thus, I deemed one sufficient, and now this is the sole example of this wagon in my collection. Keeping up with the tank theme, we have the Hornby tar and oil wagons. I've not done much to these, though the strapping on the tar wagon was broken when I bought it, so I've largely removed this. The oil tanker has one of the Series 4 small wagon faces on it. I painted some of these Shapeways prints up to use on the tankers and the narrow gauge slate wagons, but unfortunately they are too big for the latter, so now I have a healthy stock of tanker faces. Frowned upon by a certain diesel rail car are the Hornby Tidmouth milk tankers, which are largely unaltered beyond the repainted strapping holding the tanks in place. I painted these white, akin to the wagon strapping seen in the show. One of the wagons still has the factory fitted white-walled wheels, so I need to swap these out for some spoked wheels to get it looking slightly better. A unique set within my Thomas rolling stock collection is the breakdown train crane and flatbed. I purchased this from someone in a Facebook group, though I can't remember who. It's the Tomy breakdown crane on 00 gauge wagon chassis frames with couplers glued to each end. I fully repainted the model into a more muted shade of green. I've weathered it with black weathering powder, picked out the windows and chimney, and added rust weathering where appropriate. A chain has also been fitted, and the crane arm can still be raised and rotated. It's certainly a neat piece to include in a train, though it feels somewhat incomplete without the works coach. But that's a custom carriage I never got round to making. One very useful wagon in my collection that I often overlook is the Well wagon. This is a Bachmann Thomas model I've repainted and re-weathered to look more akin to the wagon in the Hit and CGI series, though it's not identical. The moulded buffers are the wrong shape for starters. It allows me to carry smaller engines and other, bigger interesting loads in a train, giving the opportunity for some infamous specials. Going smaller again now, from 00 to 009 gauge, we have the first piece of a selection of narrow gauge rolling stock with my Bachmann slate wagon. This is in pristine condition, as I've seen the real life wagon number 101 at the Taliclin, and I also use this with my non-Thomas rolling stock. Conversely, I run my triple pack of weathered slate wagons with my Skarloey engines, as everything looks completely compatible. Unfortunately, this wagon is too small for my Series 4 narrow gauge faces as mentioned earlier, so I can only recreate the faceless wagons from the Skarloey line. For covered freight, I have two of the Bachmann box wagons, one in blue and one in red. I've not modified these, but I'm planning on repainting the blue wagon brown to represent a Hit era narrow gauge box wagon. I do plan to get a second red van though, to have some larger rolling stock in my Skarloey freight trains. And to put a stop to any runaway narrow gauge freight stock, we have a pair of Bachmann brake vans, one in blue and one in red. These come in handy on all of my narrow gauge freight and passenger trains, regardless of whether they're Thomas themed or not. These two do for now, but I would like to get a third one painted brown, again akin to the brake van also seen in Series 4, but that's low down on the modelling priority list at the moment. First up for narrow gauge coaches, we have a pair of blue and white carriages by Bachmann. These are unmodified and look great behind the Skarloey engines. While they may be too glossy, plasticky, and basic for more finely detailed 009 locos, they are definitely worth getting for any Thomas themed narrow gauge layout. And Bachmann have also released these coaches in a lovely red livery, though I only have the one at the moment. Ideally, I'd like the space and number to run a train of 3 or 4 of these as in the show, but for now, a pair will do. The coaches aren't wholly accurate to the model show, but are to the CGI series and the real life Taliclin coaches. I don't intend to redo these to match the model prop specifically, as that would require sanding off tooling details and a full repaint. They fulfil their purpose as they are, and can be used with non-Thomas engines easily enough as well. So, that's everything I have for my Thomas locomotives to pull, but that collection is going to continue to grow. Backman have some new announcements I'm keen to get hold of, and when I do, I'll give them a little unboxing and also a little review on the channel as well. So there's certainly a few more Thomas pieces in the pipeline, if that's what you're here for. If you're down for some more special Thomas content for the 80th anniversary, I've got 1 or 2 additional ideas planned for release later in the year. So if you want to see those, when I do eventually get around to doing them, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and have that notification bell ready to go. But thanks for sticking around if you did make it to the end of this second Thomas collection video, and I'll see you all in another video very soon. Take care.